Consequences of a traumatic past ideally emerge from what experts call acute post-traumatic stress disorder, commonly known as PTSD. PTSD was first recognized among veterans returning from the Vietnam War. Many veterans experienced combat flashbacks, recurring night terrors, difficulty concentrating, hypervigilance, and emotional withdrawal. It is estimated that about 30% of the men, and almost as many women, who served in Vietnam developed PTSD. It's however unknown how many people who served in Iraq or Afghanistan will have the same problems. The military has tried to create preventive responses, but the anecdotal evidence is that current vets and their families suffer a great deal. As it is, veterans make up almost 15% of the homeless population, mainly because the effects of trauma make them unable to control themselves and communicate with normal people. However, once scientists clearly defined PTSD, it became apparent that other people, not only combat veterans, suffered from the same thing. So these days, it's widely understood that if you find yourself in a situation where you feel like your life or someone else's life is in serious danger, and you're overwhelmed by feelings of terror, helplessness, or horror, it might lead to PTSD. Therefore, in this video, I'm going to dive into how PTSD unfolds and how it impacts social behavior, and then I'll share 8 ways of coping with a traumatic past. Data shows that approximately 10% of women and 5% of men in the US have acute PTSD. You might be wondering, why more women? Well, it seems to boil down to victimization. Victimization plays a massive role in PTSD, mainly because feeling powerless can make the difference between acute PTSD and your normal everyday stress reactions. The distinctive feature of PTSD is that we experience intrusive memories or symptoms of the traumatic event, so vivid that we feel we are back in the trauma. These memories often seem to come out of the blue and take over the mind. People with PTSD are constantly on high alert for danger, like they're stuck in a never-ending state of chronic stress. It's like their amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, gets jammed in the on position and keeps telling their adrenal glands to pump out more adrenaline and cortisol, the hormones that prep us for danger. So they end up being hypervigilant and easily startled, and their reactions can be way more intense and harder to bounce back from than what's considered normal. And to make things worse, their hippocampus, the brain part that's supposed to put the brakes on the amygdala, gets damaged by all that adrenaline and can't really slow down the stress response. Living with PTSD means being constantly anxious and having a tendency to overreact to everyday stress in a way that can be quite self-destructive. Picture a combat veteran with a hair-trigger temper who becomes violent with their spouse, or an assault survivor who panics when someone tries to show affection. When you're dealing with PTSD, it's pretty common to fall into specific self-destructive patterns. Take memory, for instance. It's often a scrambled mess, causing people to relive the emotional impact of past events. It's easy for them to get confused between the past and the present, and they might end up blaming seemingly insignificant events for their intense reactions. PTSD is now understood to potentially stem from any situation where someone experiences terror and helplessness. But what about those who regularly face these feelings, like abused children or domestic violence survivors? Judith Herman's groundbreaking book Trauma and Recovery highlights the striking similarities between the daily experiences of such individuals and the traumatic events faced by combat veterans. Feelings of hopelessness, learned helplessness, and constant fear, along with the physical and mental consequences they bring. Many mental health professionals now believe that the impact of enduring intimate abuse can be even more severe than acute PTSD. It's estimated that around 30% of Americans, half of them women, suffer from chronic trauma syndrome. A recent study examining adult health and childhood experiences surveyed 17,000 individuals, primarily white and middle class. The results revealed that 22% of participants reported having experienced sexual abuse during childhood. Furthermore, over a quarter of respondents disclosed regular parental substance abuse, suggesting child neglect. Child abuse or neglect and domestic violence are the primary causes of chronic trauma syndrome. A new term, intimate terrorism, has been coined to describe such behavior patterns. Intimate terrorism can manifest in ways much subtler than physical violence, making it harder to identify and address. In one example, a husband married his wife to help her overcome depression, but now he blames her depression for all their problems, causing her to feel even more depressed. In another case, a man visits the bar every night, but when his wife has a glass of wine, he accuses her of alcoholism, leading to her feeling guilty. Another individual embezzles hundreds of thousands of dollars from his job, while keeping his wife and child in poverty, leaving her feeling powerless. In yet another scenario, a man is distant and unaffectionate, withholding sex, which causes his girlfriend to feel ashamed for having natural desires. Experiencing blame and manipulation from a loved one can have a profoundly detrimental impact on one's emotional health. Richard Davidson, a brain researcher who studies older adults, has discovered that individuals who are more emotionally stable and better at regulating their emotions tend to have more significant activity in the prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is believed to be responsible for executive functions, such as controlling the amygdala, managing emotional reactions, and regulating the release of stress hormones like cortisol. The amygdala serves as the brain's emotional hub, and without the influence of the higher cortex, we would constantly act on our immediate emotions. Davidson theorizes that people develop this ability to regulate emotions over time through a process of implicit or unconscious training. As we grow older, we often develop greater wisdom. But what if we were to make this implicit training more deliberate? There is a wealth of research demonstrating that the focus of our attention influences how our brain develops. In a series of experiments with monkeys, researchers exposed the animals to both music and rhythmic finger tapping. One group of monkeys received rewards for recognizing changes in the tapping rhythm, while another group was rewarded for noticing changes in the music. After 6 weeks of practice, the brain area corresponding to the tapped finger had grown larger in the first group of monkeys, while this area remained unchanged in the music group. However, the music group did exhibit growth in a brain area associated with hearing. It's important to note that all the monkeys in the study experienced both music and tapping simultaneously. The only difference between the groups was what they had learned to pay attention to. As Sharon Begley observed in a review of this research, experience coupled with attention leads to physical changes in the structure and future functioning of the nervous system. Moment by moment, we make choices that shape our minds and influence who we will become. These choices leave lasting impressions on our physical selves. What we pay attention to plays a crucial role in how our brains develop. By focusing on positive activities instead of being consumed by trauma-induced chaos, we can help ourselves grow. Distracting yourself with healthy activities isn't just a temporary solution. Practicing concentration and focus can actually change your brain. You see, the ability to focus and block out distractions is a skill that can be learned. For instance, when you become upset with your partner and yell, you increase the likelihood of repeating this behavior in the future. The neuronal connections between being upset and yelling become stronger. On the other hand, if you practice taking a few deep breaths when your partner upsets you, you're establishing a connection between conflict and a calm response. Remember, learning happens whether you want it to or not. Each time you engage in a specific behavior, you make it more likely that you'll do it again. So choose wisely. Now that we understand how a traumatic past can manifest itself in people's lives, let's explore how those affected can cope with it. Here are 8 ways to deal with a traumatic past. Number 1. Get yourself into a mindful state. Learn from your mistakes. Keeping a journal of your setbacks, mistakes, and destructive behaviors can be incredibly helpful. Writing things down is important because our self-interest bias may lead us to forget or downplay our mistakes. When something goes wrong, first record what you hoped or expected would happen, followed by the actual outcome. Then examine your expectations for any biases that may have led you astray. For example, you might have invested so much effort that you couldn't realistically assess your chances of success, or you may have been swayed by social influences, but everyone does it. Perhaps you overlooked past failures that you can only recall now in disappointment, or maybe you were tired and just wanted to get it over with. By identifying these biases, you can work on overcoming them and make better choices in the future. Number 2. Evaluate how the trauma affected you emotionally. Reflect on the self-destructive behavior that troubles you and the traumatic experiences you've encountered. Common responses to trauma include intense emotions like terror, helplessness, anger, guilt, regret, self-blame, and shame. These powerful feelings can make you feel as if you've lost control of yourself. Number 3. Evaluate what changed in your assumptive world because of trauma. Take a moment to consider these questions. How did the trauma seem to impact you? What kind of person were you before and after the traumatic event? Did you go from feeling safe to anxious, content to unhappy, easygoing to difficult, healthy to unhealthy, optimistic to pessimistic, or warm to cold? Reflecting on these changes can help you better understand the consequences of the trauma in your life. Number 4. Try to trace a connection between your self-destructive behavior and the trauma. The connection between your traumatic experiences and your current behavior may be very obvious or quite subtle. If it's not immediately clear, take the time to pay mindful attention, as there is likely a link. For instance, you might find yourself exerting excessive control over your actions, avoiding intimacy and taking risks, steering clear of situations that remind you of the traumatic events, or fearing the loss of emotional control. Does engaging in self-destructive behavior provide you with a temporary relief? Does provoking someone else serve as a distraction for you? Reflecting on these questions can help you uncover the underlying connections and work towards healing. Number 5. Work on identifying your triggers. Make a conscious effort to jot down your triggers in order to counteract the impact of your selective memory. Take a moment to reflect on this question. Do you still encounter intense emotions or episodes when something reminds you of the traumatic event? By identifying and documenting your triggers, you can better understand your reactions and work towards managing your response to these situations. Number 6. Work on gaining control. When you experience triggered emotions, remember that they're just feelings and don't have to cause you to lose control, even if they might not be suitable for the current situation. Take a deep breath, count to 10, and examine the situation and your emotions with mindfulness and objectivity. Try to observe yourself from a compassionate and curious perspective, asking yourself, what might have caused me to feel this way? The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. You can also consider gradually exposing yourself to the triggering situation. Gaining a sense of control can help to diminish its power over you. Number 7. Try the story editing approach, no matter how long ago your traumatic experience was. Take some time to write down your innermost thoughts and emotions about the traumatic event for 4 consecutive nights. As you continue writing, be attentive to any new memories resurfacing, shifts in your perspective on the event, or insights you haven't considered before. It's possible that you've suppressed a significant amount of information, and bringing it back to your conscious mind can help you process and manage it. While writing, contemplate how the event has influenced your life. Embrace radical acceptance, acknowledging that whatever happened to you at that time and place was beyond your control. Remember, the only thing you can do is to live your best life, despite the challenges you've faced. Finally, number 8. Make sure your brain and body are in the right shape. If you find that your flashbacks or self-destructive behaviors are becoming unmanageable, or if you experience memory loss, consider consulting a psychiatrist or neurologist who specializes in trauma work. Ask them all the questions you can think of, and consider bringing a loved one who has noticed changes in your behavior. It's also essential to ensure your physical well-being, so schedule regular checkups to maintain your overall health. Trauma and stress can have significant adverse effects on your body, so be particularly watchful for any signs of autoimmune diseases, which can often be linked to psychological stress. Research has demonstrated that we possess 2 competing systems within our intuitive selves: the impulsive system, which seeks immediate rewards, and the organizational system, which regulates impulses and unconsciously decides the most sensible choice. For individuals with traumatic histories, the impulsive system tends to be stronger than average. As a result, they may succumb to the urge to procrastinate, act aggressively, shout at their children, or indulge in unhealthy foods. Therefore, it is crucial for those who have experienced trauma to focus on developing stronger executive functioning and impulse control. By consciously practicing the habits discussed in this video, you can embark on a journey toward healing and self-improvement. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more content like this. With that said, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.